Hello, welcome to Artist Interview. I am your host, Jameson Baxter. Each episode, I interview an artist to highlight their work and creative process in order to inspire others to create. Today, we will be getting to know Candace Neal, a Florida-based artist who practices many genres of art, including, but not limited to, theater, songwriting, and illustration. So, thank you, Candace, for being willing to be interviewed for this. And why don't we start off with you just telling us a little bit about yourself and who you are?
Yeah. Okay. So my name is Candace, and I always have a hard time with the "Who are you?" question because if we're going by my degree, I was a theater major, and so I've always said, "Hi, I'm Candace. I'm an actor." And the older I get, the more I realize that life requires a lot of hats. And I have always had a hard time. I've had a bit of an identity crisis where I don't know what I want to do. I love acting. I moved to Orlando from North Carolina, which is where I'm from, to pursue acting, and I started working at Disney World, and I started working at Universal, and I'm doing Harry Potter shows and Finding Nemo, and I love all those things, and I love theater. But I started to find that I really love creating. And so I started working for a children's theater, and I started writing children's shows and directing. And then that started to lead me into the orchestra world, and I started narrating for orchestras. And suddenly here I am, and I'm illustrating, which sounds like a really weird journey. And how did I get here? But I now work for an orchestra, and I narrate for them, and I write their children's programs, and I illustrate them as well. And so I do some different things. But if we're gonna condense it all down to one thing, I like to create, and it makes me very happy. So yeah.
Thank you. That's awesome. So yes, I want to know, if you were to give yourself a title, what would it be? Because I'm hearing creator, illustrator.
Yeah, I have started, I think I've started putting in my email signature, I've been putting creative professional, and it's supposed to be an umbrella to cover songwriting and playwriting and illustrating and just writing. So we'll say that. We'll say creative professional, but definitely in the theatrical arts world. Yeah.
That's great.
Thanks.
Because I've tried hard to put a title on myself as well.
It's hard.
It is hard. Yes, I like creative professional. So Candace, how long have you been an artist, would you say?
That's a good question. So I would say professionally, I started drawing for money, if you want to put it like that, about 4 years ago. So not very long. But if we're talking about when did I start doodling, and when did I start, I got into graphic design and everything in that visual arts world. That all started when I was a kid. So my parents were both visual arts majors. My mom was a painter sculptor type, and my dad is a graphic designer, and he did comics and cartoons as well. And so there was always a drafting table in the house, and there were lots of fancy markers that I was not supposed to touch. And I did. And so there was always art in the house, and I was always drawing when I was growing up. And then I kind of let that fall away and really pursued theater, and it just was a side hobby thing. But I feel like I have always enjoyed the arts, and then I started to pursue it professionally just a few years ago. So it's kind of a multi-pronged answer, but
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, theater is art.
Yes.
So, so have you been doing that kind of your whole?
Yeah, I started doing theater when I was 8 years old, and I was in Alice in Wonderland, and I was Lady in Waiting 2, which I don't even think people know that character exists. But that was my role. And then I loved it so much. And so I did theater for the rest of my life, and continue to do it in various forms. So yeah, the arts in general they just blanketed my existence. So yeah.
I love that answer. You can't turn it off. You can't parcel it out.
No.
So my next question, Candace, why do you make art?
Oh my gosh. So there are many reasons, as I'm sure is the case with you as an artist and with all the artists out there. Um, a very simple answer to that is that it really brings me a lot of peace. And literally, I have this Fitbit on, and it's very funny. I will look at my Fitbit, and the times that I'm drawing throughout the day, my heart rate is very low. Like, I'm very at ease when I'm drawing. I'm in my head a lot. I have anxiety, and I have depression issues, and I have been able to really escape, that sensation of just the struggle and what ifs in my head. So it's very peaceful for me. It's helped me with anxiety. And the other thing is that I'm not always great with my words, and it's been a nice way to communicate. So when I teach theater, and it's been a nice way to help students understand what I'm saying. As a storyteller, it's a great way to tell the story, in addition to words and music and dance and emotion. It really completes the story, having that visual. And then one thing that I've recently learned is, it's been, on top of communicating with people, it's been a really great way to connect with people. I only recently started doing commissions in the last year, drawing portraits for people and drawing their pets and their families and their houses. And it has been such a nice way to connect with people on an entirely new level. People want to have their shoe drawn or something really valuable to them. I would say almost 50% of my work that I do is to commemorate people who have passed, or pets that have passed, or homes that we're moving out of that we lived in for 20 years. And it's a nice way to wrap up those memories. And I've really, been able to delve in with people who I've never even met, and I've learned about their entire family history. And that's been really nice. And somebody who has social anxiety, it's been a cool way to connect with people. So, yeah.
Neat. Thank you. So as a creative professional, but more so under that umbrella as an illustrator,
Mhm.
what medium do you use to create your art?
So it's the future, and a few years ago for my birthday, my dad got me an iPad, and I've always been just an ink and paper kind of gal. And the iPad I was intimidated by, because, and I have it here. I have a prop. So this is my iPad, and then this is my little Apple Pencil, and I was intimidated because how is this piece of plastic going to glide over this glass screen, and how is that going to do anything for me as an artist? And it really, really did. For having a short attention span, your art is immediately there, and you can shift the colors around, and you can have it on a screen and send it off to somebody right away. So it's nice and quick. And it's just been amazing. It has opened up so many possibilities for me as an artist, where I felt kind of limited, and I didn't have to invest in a lot of supplies, and I can take it with me. A lot of times I would draw backstage in between scenes during shows. So it's been very portable and very convenient, and just amazing. I am obsessed with it. I love it. So the iPad, electronics, it's been good.
And how did you get interested in that? Was it because your dad?
Yeah, absolutely. I always kind of I really put my illustration aspirations on the back burner, because I was like, I don't have time. I don't have the space. I don't have a creative space. Especially, I did not expect that I would continue pursuing art. I have a 1-year-old. I thought, I have a kid now. I'm not going to have time to do this. And it has been quite the opposite. And my dad definitely helped facilitate that. He's always been really with the times. He's an Apple user, and so he's always just in that art world, and he's been very encouraging, never pushing me, but he and my mom both just always felt like it was something that I loved that I had maybe forgotten about. And I think the iPad gift was just kind of a, by the way, we know you like this, give it a try if you want to pick it back up. And it worked. So
great.
My parents have been really influential with that for sure.
That's really neat, because I am someone who does, in the art world, we refer to them as analog drawings versus digital drawings.
Yeah.
But I think it is really neat how the technology that's out there now allows people to access art in a new way that, you know, we always have excuses for why we don't do things, especially artists. So I'm glad you have found something that kind of helps you not come up with excuses, but
it kind of lifted a creative block that I don't think I was even aware of. But I will say that looking at your art does make me nostalgic for like pen and paper, and I'm like, I gotta do that. You're like morning coffee mugs and all of that. I'm like, that's not, I need that morning ritual. I would like to have that tangible art again too. So I haven't forgotten it. But it has been very accessible with the iPad. You're right.
That's great. So, because you were talking about excuses, what would you say to someone who says, I'm no artist, I can't do that?
I have heard this. I've heard this.
I have heard this so many times, and I want to know what you would say to someone who says that.
Well, I I have to apply it to theater for me, because it does always go back to theater. And so we have, as actors, it has been sort of burned into our brains that you don't say no, and you cannot say I can't do that, because you're always going to try and say yes. And I've taught students who felt that they couldn't do it, and it always comes back to humor for me, because I feel like humor brings out people's humanity. And it's easy to think, with social media, with Instagram and Facebook, that life must be perfect, and that if I'm to do art, it must be perfect and pristine. And I feel that it is quite the opposite, and that my favorite art is usually, it has character and quirk, and it's funny and it's weird. And I think that's really why people like artists, is that imperfection. And you know, when you read about fine artists like Van Gogh and Monet, they were not perfect, and they were strange, and we like that in people. So I think people will also realize that art is not, of course, limited to paint or clay or anything like that. There are culinary arts. I think there's an art to being an athlete that I don't possess that skill. But I think that everything in its own way is art, and it's just about embracing that whatever is weird and quirky and cool about you, I think, is what it is. So if that's empowering to you as an artist who feels inferior, just cling to that. It does not have to be perfect. No perfection.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I often say I am zany, and I like to be zany.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I always try to have people just be brave and try.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes art, we can put it in a box and think that we can't actually do it, that we're just not good enough. But really, it's more about the process and just being brave and creating and trying.
It is. It is.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I love the quirkiness.
Yeah.
Because
me too.
that's life. Life is quirky.
It's
So,
it's
you
it's
know,
true. It's unexpected. There are a lot of curveballs, i.e., this entire year has been a curveball for most.
yes.
I completely agree. And there are no. I know if you go to art school, they would not like they would dispute what I'm saying. But there are no rules really when it comes to just practicing art. And it is a practice. There isn't a finish line. It's just this process, ever evolving. And so there are no rules to follow or abide by. It's very freeing. And at least that's what, anytime I get into a zone where I'm like, oh, it must be like this. It does not have to be. That nobody is putting a big red F on my paper. It's just, it is what it is. It's okay.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. Thank you. So
Yeah.
circling back to you being an illustrator,
Hmm.
can you just walk us through like what a project might look like for you? I know
Yeah.
you mentioned, getting a commission or what have you. Yeah, just share with us a little bit of your process.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned earlier, we have a 1-year-old, Jameson. You know about multiple children in the house. So, and especially being kind of quarantined at home all of the time, I do not have a fancy studio or a pleasant hillside that I like run away to with an easel. It's not very pretty. It involves coffee and a couch. And typically, if the baby is still asleep, it's nice to get up, pour some coffee, and I usually already know what I'm going to draw. So, for instance, I recently did a project for the orchestra, and we're doing a kind of a musical retelling of Goldilocks. And so I just finished working on all these illustrations, and it is hard for me to draw things just right out of my head. I really do like to look at something for reference. So I found a lot of pictures of bears because it's Goldilocks. And I like to look to other artists to see what they're doing before I get started. And then once I feel like I've got some nice reference points, usually that's just a Google search. I pick the pencil version of to draw on the iPad, and I sketch it out, and then I pick what is called on the iPad just a technical pen, and I go over that, make the lines nice and pretty, and then I fill it in, color it with whatever colors. Oh, and the color palette is very important to me. I like to pick all the colors that I want and have them in front of me, just so I kind of have some parameters so it doesn't go too crazy. I have a nice cohesive color palette. And then after I color it in, I like to add all the little details. And I always do, usually I do a lot of animals and people. And I always do the face last. I don't know, I feel like the face is like the cherry on top. Like it's like a button for me. So I get really excited when I do the face because I'm like, there is complete now. So I always save the face for last. I almost always forget to sign my work. I've had a few clients that they're like, you didn't sign it. So I don't have to do that as much when I'm doing something for the orchestra, like a big project, but especially commission pieces, I often need a reminder to sign my own work, which probably means I'm a bit of a novice, but I will sign the work when it is totally complete. And that's just the nice little drawing process, very step by step, no real time limit. I do usually, when I'm like in the zone for a piece of art, I don't usually step away from it. I usually try to do it all in one sitting, unless it's like a crazy huge project. But for one piece of art, I'll hack away at it for a couple hours or so, unless there's a baby, in which case the baby's around, the baby's getting fed, sometimes nursed while drawing, and so that's when I have to kind of, it's a little more sporadic of a process, but then, yeah, then all the boring stuff of I put it on the computer and I resize and ship it off, so to speak, by email. And yeah, was that good? Does that
No, that's
describe it
great.
pretty well?
That's
Okay.
great. I love that you lifted up making art in the midst of your house and in your life. I think oftentimes we think about we need to have this pristine studio
Yeah.
space, or the planets need to align just right in order to make art.
Yeah.
I often dream of that type of thing happening and it being
Yes.
this blissful experience, but a lot of times, you know, you got to make art in the midst of it all. So
Hmm. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It
you're a
is,
great example of
it's
that.
messy. There are toys everywhere. Um, Jameson, I sent you some video footage of my process. So if you share that, there are cars and toys,
Oh
and
yes, great.
it's not pretty. And I get intimidated by people who really have made this a career and they've done this for decades and they have these beautiful studios, and we live in a 2-bedroom apartment, so we're not there yet, and it's fine, and it works. Nobody knows when they see that picture. They don't know the chaos that was around it while it was being created. Um so yeah, that's the process in a nutshell.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So is there anything that you want to share with with
I
all?
just want to empower uh, and encourage anyone who's watching this that if there's any way you can add a little bit of art to your day, it really is so freeing and so peaceful, as long as you are being authentic to yourself. I even recently have caught myself feeling like I needed to mimic other artists who are very successful, or capture their style. And the minute that I start to get in my head about that, and I lose myself, that's when it becomes frustrating, and that's when it's not fun anymore. So, my grandfather, before he passed away, he discovered those adult coloring books, and was never interested in visual arts. This was so surprising to us, and he colored so many of those coloring books, and they were beautiful. And I feel like he tapped into a part of himself that we did not know existed, and he loved it. And so put no limits on what that might be, whether it's whatever medium works for you, whatever feels good to you. And just remember that, like I said earlier, no finish line, no rules. Allow it to be a practice, allow it to be fun. When it's not fun, just put it away for a little bit, because it should always just feel good. So, yeah.
Thank you, Candace, for your time and sharing and showing us a little bit about who you are as an artist, and inspiring us to go out and create. And we are going to take a look now at some of your art. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Jameson.